Welcome to Scott Fox After 9. Brand new episode ready to go. Today I'm going to do some solo Scott about some important issues that I think we need to talk about. But before I get to the solo Scott part, I'm going to bring in the great Anna Almeida to set up tomorrow's podcast. Hi, Anna. How are you?
I'm good. How are you?
Good. You're one who's been following the story of Silent Date Guy for quite a while now.
I am so invested. And for a hot minute there, I thought, maybe I'm too invested. And then I meet people who are out and about and they come to me and that's one of the first questions they say. What's going on with him? And then I realize I'm not alone on this. So he is a celebrity in our eyes, even though we have no idea what he looks like.
Well, tomorrow's story is going to be good.
Oh my gosh, I can't wait.
What I need is for nothing big to happen politically or in the news for the next 24 hours so I can dedicate some time in tomorrow's pod for Silent Date Guy, because they went to Las Vegas and she kind of ditched him for a long time. For a few hours, he had no idea where she was.
Who does that? Who takes somebody on vacation and then ditches them? I would have been pissed.
Well, wait till you hear the story. It's interesting. There was also another celebrity encounter. Athlete.
Oh my God. Are you going to tell me who this one is?
Football player.
But you know who it is?
I know who it is.
But you won't tell me?
I don't know if I'm allowed to.
This is killing me. I'm still guessing the first one that was at her house when they had the barbecue and pool party.
Some listeners have guessed it.
No.
Yeah, I can't tell them if they're right or wrong, but listeners have sent me the right answer.
Oh my gosh. I got to go back. I need to think about it. I have my theories, but you won't confirm. You definitely deny. So that's coming up on tomorrow's episode. Before I get to the solo Scott part of today, since you're here, can we talk about a few things? Yeah, please.
Number one, for anybody who is listening outside of the greater Toronto area, and you're going to be coming to Toronto, particularly for a concert, you should know that we have Rogers Centre, which is where the Blue Jays play, and we have Rogers Stadium, which is not where the Blue Jays play. That's where they do the concerts. It's a new venue that they set up. And last night, Coldplay had the first big mainstream show at this new Rogers Stadium. And it almost kind of looks like a temporary stadium. I don't know if it's going to be there forever because they've got it set up in a way that if they ever wanted to move it to Niagara Falls, they could, Anna. They could.
Oh, I didn't realize that. And to be honest, I also saw some of the behind the scenes of how it's built. And I'm sure it's safe. But it just makes me nervous when everybody's jumping around having a good time cheering.
It looks like a Lego kit.
Yeah.
It's like Mega Blocks, this stadium. And I think putting it in Niagara Falls would make a lot of sense after they get through this summer. But I don't know what the plan is for it. But I'll tell you, it is a little weird for some people because we built a 50,000 seat stadium. Only we would do this. A 50,000 seat stadium with 0 parking spaces. 0. None.
You know what? It's funny because once you said that, I thought, oh my gosh, you're right. Why?
Only we would do that.
It makes no sense. They just ran out of time. They had to finish the stadium. Forget the parking.
Well, I thought the whole point of putting it at Downsview, which is an old Air Force base, by the way, it's not being used. They actually set up this new stadium on the old runway. You walk the runway to get into it. It's amazing.
That's cool.
If you're an aviation freak like myself, that's pretty cool. However, it doesn't change the fact that I thought we were putting it there because it did have more room to do things like park. Unfortunately, no parking. And I can't figure out why. So last night, even Chris Martin, lead singer of Coldplay, joked about what a trial and tribulation it was to try and get into the stadium.
Well, thanks for coming. I hope that you have fun. I can promise you Toronto, the greatest show we've ever done. Okay, welcome everybody. Thank you for waiting 8 years and 10 minutes for us. Go. And we'd like to say thank you so much for coming through all the bullshit you have to come through to this weird stadium in the middle of nowhere. So thank you for coming through the traffic and the travel and the trains and the waiting and the lines and all the nonsense. And I hope
That should be right on the Welcome to Toronto side. It should be right on the sign. Thank you for coming through the trains and the travel and the lines and the nonsense.
It's just so sad to me that Chris Martin of Coldplay, if he is asked about Toronto, those are probably the first things he's going to say. I think it's great once you get through the traffic and this and that, and you go to a random stadium in the middle of nowhere.
Seriously. I mean, what are we doing here?
Oh my gosh, it's so good.
Only we would build a stadium with zero parking. It's funny because if you go to any of the big American cities,
Yeah.
there's parking at the stadium.
Naturally, that's what one does. You put parking where people attend, festivities.
We had limited parking outside Scotiabank Arena and the Rogers Centre, limited,
Yeah.
and got rid of that. Now we build a new stadium with lots of potential for parking and didn't put in a single space. It's ridiculous. It's just crazy. Anyway, I do want to also, while you're here, tell everyone, because I think this will be a fun little reminiscent thing. We'll take a stroll down memory lane. Ooh. Yesterday, Anna came to the rescue of a young driver who was in distress. And you don't really seem like the type to me that approaches strangers very often. But yesterday when you and your dad were running errands, you noticed somebody was struggling and you went over to try and help. And I think that's beautiful.
Oh, thank you. So I saw a young teenage couple. The guy was, half in the car, half not, trying to push his car forward because the battery had died. And his girlfriend, beautiful blonde little thing, pushing from behind. I can tell you they weren't getting very far. Okay? So that's when Dad, hold my purse. I'm going in. I went to go and help. I assessed the situation, asked what's going on. Do you need a boost? And he said, actually, my car battery died, but it's a standard. So if I can kick it into the first gear, it's going to be fine. No problem. Okay, awesome. Problem is, buddy, you can't start the car if you're not in the car with your foot on the clutch and in first gear. You got to sit
This
in
is the problem,
car.
right? Like, it's rare to find a teenager that knows how to drive stick.
Yeah, so
the fact that this kid did know how, but didn't at the same time, that's kind of cute.
It was adorable. And his girlfriend still pushing beside me, being like, help us, please. So anyways, I said, get in the car and I'm going to push you and you're going to feel the vehicle when it's time to start the engine. And he said, really? As if I wouldn't have any, knowledge of a standard vehicle, which was a little insulting, but I thought, okay, no, you're stressed out.
He thought you were messing with him.
Yeah. And so I said, but get in the car. First of all, get in the car. We're going to push. Get in. All right. So there he is. He gets in and he stalls it because he didn't listen. He didn't wait for me to say, feeling it out. So after his embarrassment, we tried again. I said, listen, when I say start it, that's when you start the vehicle. Okay. And then I screamed out.
Sucks when you have to repeat yourself to teenagers, doesn't
it?
Yeah,
I know.
Yeah. I'm a dad. I grew up with that. Or I've been going through it for years.
So I felt it. I knew it was time. I said, hey, buddy, start the car. And he's like, are you sure? Start the car. I didn't, again, repeating myself. And then he started it. Boom, started it. And off he went. And then the girlfriend jumped in the passenger seat. Windows are rolled down. Her hair is flying out, her beautiful blonde hair. He comes over to me. He's thanking me. And the smile on his face because he got the car in gear. And I was like, you know what? Not all heroes wear capes, right? Here I am. And I did a good deed. My dad, I've done a lot of things.
He must have been so proud.
Well,
because he just stood there and let you direct this, right?
He tried to push. He put his hand on the back, but he didn't do anything. He was just like, la, 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 la. I've done all my stuff all these years. I'm good. You just do you. Anyhow, I've done good things in my day, I would like to think. I would think I've made him proud, but I've never seen my dad more proud than he was yesterday.
I can imagine. Jumping in like a boss, teaching this young man how to drive a stick. Or how to get it started when the battery is dead.
Yeah, and I said, make sure when you get it, just go. You press on the engine, press on the gear and just go on the gas. And he was like, okay, and he did. He was so nervous, but he made it work because we were watching. There was more people, And anyways, they got it going. He went around. He thanked me. I was super excited. But it just is such a lost art. I couldn't believe that this young kid was driving a standard vehicle. I feel like it's a thing that people should know, but they don't anymore.
No, they don't even teach you. Well, in fairness, though, it's hard to find a car that's stick these days. Not every model is available. Back when I was in my car shopping days, you could get it in automatic or standard.
Right.
And many people back then opted for standard. They wanted to feel the engine shift. And it's a very different feel when you're driving, but I actually feel a little more like you're driving when you're rolling the stick.
Yeah, you are. You're more in control. The car tells you. Even now when I drive automatic, I think to myself, oh, that's when I would shift gears. Oh, right there again. Although, hey, man, I've put in my time. I'm a lazy driver now. If the option was presented to me, I'd still choose automatic because that's where I'm at in life. But sometimes getting behind the wheel of a 5-speed, there's nothing better than hearing the engine rev and going. You know, power.
Tell me about the first car that you drove that was stick.
A 1992 Civic hatchback 2-door with a speaker, boom, and then the muffler. Oh my gosh, the muffler coming down the road. You could just hear us coming. It was like we were drag racing down Franklin Boulevard in Cambridge.
For those who still can't visualize it, if you still can't quite picture what Anna is talking about, let me see if I can help. And here comes Anna.
Yeah, I'm a Gino Bates. Stevie B.
Little Portuguese girl in Cambridge driving around in a 2-door Civic back in the early 90s. It sounds very, very familiar.
Oh, man. And it was... Sing it to me. Oh. And no power
It's all the Stevie B you get.
Yeah, no power steering, no power windows, no air conditioning. But that was the time to be alive. And everybody had it. I felt like I was a part of the Fast and the Furious.
I'll bet you did.
You know?
And you were able to pass on those skills to the younger generation. Good for you.
You know, he questioned me. I let that slide. You know, I let it go. But again, not all heroes wear capes. Sometimes they pass their purse to their dad to hold.
Hey, and that's great too. I'm sure your dad was real proud of you. I love that. While you're here, let me ask you about a couple other things, and then I'll get to the Solo Scott stuff.
Yes, please.
By the way, Solo Scott today is going to talk about nation-building projects, because yesterday, at least one conservative was there when Premier Danielle Smith and Premier Doug Ford stood up and announced a new joint project between Ontario and Alberta. And I think that we've made a grave mistake here in this country.
You do? Okay, I'm interested. I'm excited to listen afterwards to hear what you have to say about that, because people are talking about it today.
They certainly are. Absolutely. First off, let's go to Cabana this past Sunday. For those not in the Toronto area, Cabana is a pool bar right on Lake Ontario. It's very, very popular. It is live to air on our sister station, Z1035, and that's the live broadcast that's on right before I come on Z on Sundays. Manzone and Strong have been doing that gig for years, and they do a hell of a job at it. Well, there was a little bit of drama this past Sunday, and it was captured on video when a man tried to go into the women's bathroom at Cabana. Now, I've seen many, many, many videos over the years of women who have felt the line in the ladies' room was too long, and they felt a certain entitlement to go into the men's room where men are more likely to be using the urinal and there's toilets free. It's not very often, though, that a man goes into a woman's bathroom, but we've been sent some mixed signals over the 10 years of Justin Trudeau, where some people got the impression that it was totally fair game for men to use the ladies' room.
Listen, I have definitely been the women who have gone into the men's bathroom because I was tired of waiting. Because it's true, their toilets are not being used. They're using urinals, and I need to pee, so I would go in. But I would raise my eyebrows if I did see a gentleman walk in to use our bathroom, mostly because there's usually a lineup, and how dare you try to butt. Well,
I think that the ladies showed some good character here, because not only did they say, this is not okay, they threw this son of a bee out.
Get out.
Listen to this.
Then get out. Why are you talking about let me solo? Get the fuck out.
Who are you?
If I'm worthless, get out.
You are a man, you fucking dick. Get the fuck out of the bathroom.
Then go.
You are a man, get the fuck out of the bathroom.
Then go.
I don't have to fucking hear you. Get the fuck out of the bathroom. Get the fuck out. Bathroom. Keep going.
He eventually did leave. It was a bit of a scene there for a while, but eventually the guy who tried to argue he had a right to be there, eventually he did leave.
And he doesn't have a right, because
No,
it's
he doesn't.
usually, if it's gender neutral, that's when you share the bathroom, all sexes, whatever you identify with, you share the facilities. But when it's designated women and men, that's how it's typically supposed to be. And you don't want to share your space. Wait your turn and go into your bathroom. And it took that guy a while. The woman was very forceful. Like, am I stuttering? No, man, get out.
I think that's great. I wish more women would do that, because there seems to be some guys, misguided in my estimation, that have developed the opinion that it's okay for them to go anywhere they want. And that's simply not accurate. You stay the hell out of the women's bathrooms.
Yeah, no doubt. And you don't know. I mean, in this situation, it was a 19 plus, but in other situations when this has happened, people are in there with their families, their kids. And that's not necessary. Get out. I'm with them. Like, get the hell out. Mind your business and know your role. Get out. Wait in your line. With that being said, I would expect then if a guy said that to me, I would be like, cool, man. All right, you called me out. But if you don't say anything, you don't know, and you just do what you were going to do anyway. So, yeah, I agree. There you go.
I want to play 3 pieces of audio for you before you go.
Yes.
3. Yesterday, we had a long chat about the Jeffrey Epstein files. I am so deeply disappointed in the U.S. government for failing to produce these Epstein files. They said they would do it, and now they're claiming there are none. Although the 10-hour video that they shared showing that nobody went in or out of Epstein's cell. I'm going to contradict that in a few minutes. Before I do, though, let's go back to why everybody was so excited that the Epstein files were finally going to come out. There are 2 people that are mainly in charge of this, above or below Donald Trump. Trump himself is the main guy. He's the president of the United States. He's the one who gave the directive, get these files out to the public.
Yeah.
Well, we have the Attorney General, Pam Bondi, and we have the head of the FBI, Kash Patel. Kash Patel was on the Benny Johnson podcast back in February. This is what Kash Patel said. Listen to this.
You say that the FBI has Epstein's list. They're sitting on it. That doesn't seem like something you should do. You're protecting the world's foremost predator. That seems like an evil thing to do, regardless of who may be embarrassed in the release of that list. Why is the FBI protecting the greatest pederast, the largest scale pederast in human history?
Simple, because of who's on that list.
Damn, that's what it is.
Did that sound like there's no list? Because he said that's who's on the list. That's what he said there, right? I didn't mishear that?
No, you were absolutely correct.
So Kash Patel knew there was a list. At some point, there was a list. Now, let's go to the clip that I played yesterday. I'm going to play it again. This is U.S. Attorney General Pam Bondi on Fox News with John Roberts.
Yeah, I saw your appearance at CPAC with Ben and with Ted Cruz. And one of the things that you alluded to, and this is something Donald Trump has talked about, the DOJ may be releasing the list of Jeffrey Epstein's clients. Will that really happen?
It's sitting on my desk right now to review. That's been a directive by President Trump. I'm reviewing that. I'm reviewing JFK files, MLK files. That's all in the process of being reviewed because that was done at the directive of the president from all of these agencies.
So have you seen anything that you said, oh my gosh?
Not yet.
Okay. That was the Attorney General and the Director of the FBI both talking about the list. There's no denying there was a list. It was sitting on her desk, she said. Kash Patel gave indications that, yes, there is definitely a list. He indicated that there were some major names on it.
That is why it's not been released. And now there's no list. Like, there's actual audio and recordings of lists, but nobody will come forward now. What's going on? What's happening?
Let me go to yesterday.
Okay.
White House press briefing. This is the White House press secretary, and I've lost some respect for her.
Okay.
Carolyn Levitt yesterday was asked a question specifically about this new information that the Epstein case is basically closed. There's no evidence to share with people. Listen to the question and answer from yesterday at the White House. This is about 2 minutes long.
DOJ and FBI have now concluded there was no Jeffrey Epstein client list. What do you tell MAGA supporters who say they want anyone involved in Jeffrey Epstein's alleged crimes to be held accountable?
This administration wants anyone who has ever committed a crime to be held accountable, and I would argue this administration has done more to lock up bad guys than certainly the previous administration. And the Trump administration is committed to truth and to transparency. That's why the Attorney General and the FBI Director pledged at the President's direction to do an exhaustive review of all of the files related to Jeffrey Epstein's crimes and his death. And they put out a memo in conclusion of that review. There was material they did not release because, frankly, it was incredibly graphic and it contained child pornography, which is not something that's appropriate for public consumption. But they committed to an exhaustive investigation. That's what they did, and they provided the results of that. That's transparency.
Follow up on that,
Sure.
Caroline. Okay, so the FBI looks at the circumstances surrounding the death of Jeffrey Epstein. According to the report, this systematic review revealed no incriminating client list. So what happened to the Epstein client list that the Attorney General said she had on her desk?
Well, I think if you go back and look at what the Attorney General said in that interview, which was on your network on Fox
I've
News.
got the quote.
Go ahead.
John Roberts said, DOJ may be releasing the list of Jeffrey Epstein's clients. Will that really happen? And she said, it's sitting on my desk right now to review.
Yes, she was saying the entirety of all of the paperwork, all of the paper in relation to Jeffrey Epstein's crimes. That's what the Attorney General was referring to, and I'll let her speak for that. But again, when it comes to the FBI and the Department of Justice, they are more than committed to ensuring that bad people are put behind bars. They have an operation going on right now called...
I'm going to leave it there. No answer to that. That is spin.
Oh, yeah.
That is a cover-up. That is nothing more than a cover-up, and that is not what we were promised by the American people. Listen, like I said yesterday, this is very, very, very cut and dried. We know exactly what happened here. We all know there were kids that were trafficked. There were kids that were sexually abused in the most graphic and violent ways possible. There may even have been some kids killed. Maybe. The FBI apparently has some footage of this, but we have no perpetrators? Mm-hmm. You expect us to believe that there's no perpetrators. Ghislaine Maxwell is in jail for trafficking. Nobody? Nobody at all.
But she's in there serving time.
She trafficked somebody, but we don't know who. Is that right? Because as far as I'm concerned, Anna, this president is no better than the other ones.
No.
None of them. Listen, we want transparency. We want to know what happened, and we want to see justice for the victims. That's what the vast majority of level-headed center individuals want. People who committed crimes against children to be prosecuted to the fullest extent of the law. And this White House is now standing in the way of that. And I think it is complete and total nonsense. You know, I think it was Glenn Beck that said it best yesterday on X. Let me read you a little bit of what he tweeted out yesterday.
Okay.
The Epstein evidence list isn't just damning, it's clarifying. No matter what you believe about Epstein's past or fate, 5 conclusions can be logically drawn from the material seized. This was not a small or isolated operation. There were dozens of devices, thousands of photos, labeled photo albums, surveillance tapes, blueprints, foreign passports. This wasn't a guy with a dark secret. This was infrastructure, logistics, and coordination, a system. There is a massive digital footprint, hundreds of hard drives, USB sticks, CDs, backup servers, some of them labeled with things like Nude Girl Pics Book 4. There's travel logs, employee directories, videotapes. Why hasn't all that been fully disclosed to the public? There's an Australian passport with Epstein's face on it. He had international mobility. There's just too much precision here, too much reach, too many decades undetected. How is it even possible that the FBI and the Department of Justice can produce nothing? Mm-hmm. I'm done with this presidency. I'm done with this office. I'm done with it. Until somebody produces transparency and tells us what the hell went on Epstein Island and who did it, I don't want to hear any more from this president because I don't care. I'm done.
And honestly, and this is going to maybe sound so far-fetched, I almost feel like they're just waiting to find the right person to pin this on. I know that sounds crazy because people want answers. They're not going to go away, that they need to find somebody who maybe have been named in this, who had maybe a minor role. Regardless, you're disgusting. Anyways, I think that they're looking for somebody to take the fall so they could get the heat off of them. But there's no way, you can't tell me after all these years there's no client list. We know there's a list. Produce the list. Let us know. I don't care. You're on the list. We all know you're on the list, Donald Trump. It's been talked about. There's been plenty of people, even Stephen Hawking, for goodness sake, people have mentioned him on this frickin' list.
Say the Democrats too, though.
Yeah,
Bill Clinton.
I was going there.
Obama.
I was going to say Bill Clinton too, for sure.
Possibly Justin Trudeau. Possibly.
But royalty, I mean, gosh damn
Prince
it.
Andrew.
Like, give me a break. And that's known. His accuser even came forward and he stepped down. You don't step down if you have nothing to hide from public life if you're a royal. Like, let's get that straight, because they take pride on being for the people. So there is truth to these stories. Now, we want the truth, and kids were harmed. Come on. Just take a minute to just process that. These are kids. Children who didn't get a say, whose childhoods were robbed of them.
I want to play 2 things for you about this release.
Yeah.
By the way, I don't know for certain who is or isn't on the list because the FBI hasn't put it out, but those are certainly the names that come up if you even Google this story as possible. Let me do two things for you. Number one, from a current affair. This is a former mobster who was once in the same jail as Jeffrey Epstein. He says there's no way Jeffrey Epstein killed himself. Listen to this.
You were in the same prison as Jeffrey Epstein.
Yes.
What do you think happened?
Jeffrey Epstein would have to be a magician to try to hang himself in that cell. I was in that cell. There's no way there's nothing on the ceiling. The bedpost is this high. I couldn't even go to a restroom without them walking back and forth and having me on camera. You know, there's no way he committed suicide.
So you reckon he was killed?
Yeah.
Why?
I believe that. I mean, look, there's no doubt there was powerful people involved with him, 100%. These people have a way of covering things up.
Oh, yeah, covering it up? Well, that's another suggestion here. It's possible that maybe the blame for this not being the transparent thing that we thought it would be, it's possible that this is out of Kash Patel's hands. Possibly. Because a former CIA officer, his name is John Kirikou, says the deep state likely destroyed the Epstein documents long before Kash Patel and Dan Bongino got to the FBI. Let me play you a little bit of this former CIA agent on Fox News.
I'm not blaming the FBI director, Kash Patel, or the deputy director, Dan Bongino. I think that layer beneath them, that's part of what we like to call the deep state, has taken this bull by the horns, and they've probably destroyed information. Look at what the CIA did in 1975 after Congress ordered that it release all of its files related to an operation called MKUltra. The director of the CIA went back to headquarters and ordered everything to be destroyed. And in the end, only about 20% of the documents survived. We're still learning about the FBI's operations against Martin Luther King 55 years after the fact. So now we're supposed to believe that everybody's telling the truth, that there were no files, there were no dossiers. I'm sorry, I just don't buy it because I know how these people operate.
And can I say I commend these people for even pushing this narrative, the truth, like we want the truth, because it's scary considering the power that is here, that these files do no longer exist. They don't want people keeping up on this and talking about it, and good. Keep it in the media, if anything. Keep it talking.
I fully understand what the CIA agent is saying,
Yes.
and I believe that. There are compromised individuals in the FBI, the Department of Justice, and the CIA. Those who are only there to protect the higher-ups who have done horrible things over the years. No doubt about it, they have infiltrated the FBI. Does the FBI know who these people are? I think they do. I think they know who they've been infiltrated by. My concern here is the lying. What the hell was Kash Patel referring to? They didn't destroy it after Kash Patel got it. They would have destroyed it before he got it. So what the hell was he talking about? What was the file that was sitting on Pam Bondi's desk that she talked about? Well, I haven't seen it yet, but it's on my desk. What was on your desk? If apparently it all got destroyed before you got to it, what was on your desk? And why can't we see what else is there? Listen, I don't want to see any graphic images of children being abused, but surely you can see who the people in this video are.
Yeah.
Get their faces out here. Let's see it. I don't want to hear any more nonsense about, I am not getting behind any more causes of that particular administration until there is transparency here and until we find out what the hell went on that island and who was going and who was paying to rape children.
Yeah.
Who did it?
And we should care because those are kids. Kids. We've all been kids. You may have kids. The future, they didn't deserve that. They deserved better. And now
they were treated like animals.
Honestly.
And very disposable. Very disposable.
It's disgusting. So it just makes me wonder who got to those two to now say, hey, we found nothing. I don't buy it either. There's obviously more at work here.
I have no time for any of this stuff anymore.
Yeah.
I don't care. I don't want to hear your MAGA nonsense anymore. I don't want to hear any of this crap. I don't want to hear about tariffs. I don't want to hear about wars. I don't want to hear any of it until this gets cleared up.
Yeah, man.
No support whatsoever for anything that this administration does until they come clean. And you know what? If Kash Patel were to come on and address the nation tonight and say, listen, I know that something went on here. We believe something went on here. But the reality is we've been compromised for years. We're still trying to get to the bottom of who in here isn't working for the American people and is working for the quote unquote deep state, those who did this crime. We just don't have the evidence. We know something happened, but we just can't prove it right now. I'd have more respect for them if they came out and said that. But to just say, there's no evidence, case closed, get out of here.
Yeah.
And by the way, there's a minute missing of that 10-hour video to prove that nobody went in and out of the cell. A minute of that video has been edited out. Why? What went on there?
Oh, isn't that interesting?
Isn't it, though?
Right?
Yeah, I'm getting so angry. Anna. Oh, my God. I hate that these people, it's one thing that they got away with it for as long as they did. They were living the high life. They were jet setting around the world, being treated like royalty, and just having their way with children and underage individuals. And it's sick. They're still doing it.
Yeah,
like the same people are still living that lavish lifestyle, looking down on all of us and laughing that they got away with it. And I don't want them to get away with it. I want arrests. I want trials. I want justice for the victims. And right now, none of that is happening. And I'm fed up. Just fed up. Very, very, very disappointed in Donald Trump, Kash Patel, and Pam Bondi. I wanted much more than this. They promised us much more than this. They alluded to them having way more than this, and they don't have it. They say. Or they do, and they just don't think the public can handle it. That's also a possibility that's on my mind.
Well, give it to us so then we can decide if we can handle it or not. Let that be our decision since you've been controlling all the decisions this far. So, I'm disgusted. All of it is disgusting, and you're right. It's still happening right now, and they're laughing at us. Pardon my language. It just gets me so mad. That's the only thing I can think of that could come out.
Anna, thanks for your time today.
On that note, Scott, thank you so much for having me. So enjoy the rest of your show.
Yeah, thank you. I'm going to go now to the Premier of Alberta. Here's Danielle Smith.
We're signing 2 memorandums of understanding that will see us advance pipelines and pathways to boost exports of homegrown energy and critical minerals to markets across Canada and across the world, and work collaboratively to support both Ontario's automotive industry as well as Alberta's liquor manufacturing industry, industries that contribute substantially to our provincial economies. The first of these agreements formalizes our commitment to working together to maximize the economic value of Canada's energy resources and enhance Canada's energy security and global competitiveness. We're uniting with Ontario to amplify our voices and double down on our efforts to carve a path forward together for Alberta, for Ontario, and for Canada. Through this agreement, we'll work together to explore ways to improve networks and corridors that better connect our energy and critical minerals to markets here at home, as well as international markets around the globe. We'll focus on supporting industry efforts to build oil and gas pipelines and refining, processing, and supply chains for energy and critical minerals between Alberta and Ontario. We'll work towards accelerating our exports across industries. And that means we're seeking to add more rail lines to increase capacity and enhance access to ports, including to sites in James Bay and southern Ontario. And we will share expertise to advance development of nuclear energy solutions so our provinces can keep up with the ever-growing demand on Alberta and Ontario's electricity grids. We know there's strength in taking a united front, but we cannot achieve our shared provincial goals without cooperation from the federal government. It's vital that the federal government gets fully on board with creating the conditions necessary to strengthen Canada's economy and competitiveness, improve investor confidence, and grow productivity. Ottawa must answer our calls and remove all federal barriers that have harmed Canada's ability to grow the energy sector and other industries such as mining and manufacturing.
I'm going to leave the Premier right there because I think that that's a lot to discuss. Wow. This is like when Hulk Hogan and the Ultimate Warrior became a tag team. This is huge. Ontario and Alberta working together now. And I think it's great. I don't know why it didn't happen sooner, but I think this is great. And they have a common enemy. The enemy, right there in Ottawa, Prime Minister Mark Carney. Although I don't think he's an enemy, and I'm going to play some Doug Ford for you in a few minutes that will prove that. What Danielle Smith and what Premier Doug Ford have agreed upon here through this memo of understanding is we're going to start using the best of what we've got and sharing it with each other. And we're going to help each other get it to market. Oil is Alberta. Alberta wants to get their oil out to the rest of the world. There's only so many places they can do it. James Bay and Southern Ontario both have ports. Yeah, let's do it. Ship it. But that means we need a pipeline from Alberta to Ontario. I don't know the logistics of how it's going to work, but they've agreed to study the feasibility of it. The major obstacle here is going to be the federal government. Is this one of those so-called nation-building projects that Mark Carney wants to get behind? Because so far, the federal government has got a list of the projects they're going to greenlight, but they refuse to tell the public what it is. You know, with all the anti-democratic stuff that's gone on in this country over the last year, the government won't even tell us which projects it's considering for our nation-building projects. And that is crazy to me. Absolutely wild. So now the premiers, again, have to step in and fix Ottawa's mess. And here we go. Alberta is going to get pipelines, and they're likely going to end in Ontario because they know Quebec is going to be a problem. And, well, Quebec's a whole other animal. I don't know what to do about Quebec. They say they want to be Canadian, but they don't want to participate in Canadian stuff. Okay, we'll take that up another day. As far as Ontario and Alberta working together is concerned, this makes perfect sense. We can get Alberta oil to the rest of the world through Ontario. It's got to sail through the Great Lakes, but we can get those tankers in and out. Through the north? Absolutely. Send it out of James Bay. Let's do it. Now, what about Ontario? What does Ontario get out of this? Well, number one, we're going to be able to refine Alberta oil in Ontario. Right now, Alberta oil goes down to the States, gets refined, and then shipped up to Ontario. Why not cut out the middleman in America and just ship it right to Ontario? To do that, we need a pipeline. That's going to get built. That's also going to bring down the price of gas in Ontario substantially if we cut out the middleman and have to stop buying our own gas in US dollars. Refine it in Ontario. Extract it in Alberta. Ship it through a pipeline. That makes perfect sense. But what else is Ontario going to get out of this? Well, Ontario really wants to mine the Ring of Fire full of precious minerals and rare earth in order to have a constant supply of critical minerals and rare earth. It's got to be continuously being sent out to the coast. In order to get it to anything on that side of the world, it's got to go through the Pacific coast, meaning there's going to have to be a pipeline or a rail corridor to get these products from northern Ontario out to the Pacific. Alberta's got to sign on to that, and Alberta has signed on to that. That is good news. These are the two, nearest I can tell, most competent premiers working together, and they're going to put pressure on Ottawa to stand up and support them. They're going to tell Ottawa which projects they're doing, whether Ottawa likes it or not. And frankly, I think that's good news. The Prime Minister is really taking his sweet-ass time announcing what these nation-building projects are going to be. In fact, right now, he's on vacation. They won't even disclose where he's on vacation for security reasons. What security reasons? Is there already a threat against this guy? What did he do? I don't know why there would be a threat against Carney right now. They won't even tell us where he's vacationing. Well, transparency is going to be an issue on that one because we all know his predecessor, Justin Trudeau, had a real hard time figuring out which conflicts of interest he was going to entertain when he was on vacation. From going to the Aga Khan's Island to you name it. Justin Trudeau certainly had his issues there. Did they continue on with Mark Carney? Why can't we know where he's vacationing? We know he took a government jet. We know he's got a government security detail with him. I'd kind of like to know where my money is being spent. But that's another topic. Let's get to more of the announcement from yesterday. This is Ontario Premier Doug Ford.
Boy, I've had a great time here in Alberta, and I love Calgary and the people here. There's an amazing group of folks that live here. It's my pleasure to be here with so many members of our government. I know you run through them. I'm going to run through them one more time. Minister Lecce, Minister Surma, Minister Thompson, Minister Oosterhoff, and PA Will Boma. I want to start by thanking my friend Danielle, Premier Smith. Thank you for hosting us with this great city of Calgary and mine. You know, I got to tell my friends in Ontario, you want to come to a happening place, come to Alberta, come to the Stampede. You're going to have a great time in this beautiful province of Alberta. It's absolutely stunning here. Nothing showcases the wild rose spirit like the Calgary Stampede. The people of Alberta have been such gracious hosts. Thank you for your hospitality.
I just want to point out before I get to the meat and potatoes of what Doug had to say, Doug is almost certainly running to be Prime Minister of Canada. Pierre Poilievre as leader of the Conservative Party, because he lost his seat, is going to have to undergo a leadership review early in 2026. Now, it's no secret at all to anybody who's been paying attention, Doug Ford wants that job. Doug Ford tried actively during the federal campaign to undermine Pierre Poilievre. He wanted Pierre to lose because he knew that if Pierre lost, that would open up a laneway for him to run for prime minister. So I'm not at all surprised that Doug is being extra complimentary to Albertans, which is where the vast majority of voting Conservatives in Canada live. Don't be surprised by that very, very nice intro at all. That is very political. And that's not a shot at the premier. It's just reality. He's running for prime minister. He wants to replace Pierre Poilievre. He wears some of that Conservative loss in the federal election. Doug certainly did not help the Conservatives at all because he wants the job. Just so everybody knows, that's the way the land looks to me. Let's get to the rest of Premier Doug Ford yesterday and his announcement with Alberta.
Friends, I'm here with Premier Smith today because it's never been more important for Canadians to stand united from coast to coast to coast. President Trump's tariffs and the economic uncertainty they've created, they're hurting workers and businesses in every part of our great country. Steelmakers and aluminum workers in Ontario and Quebec, fishermen and women in British Columbia and Atlantic Canada, farmers across the prairies, including right here in Alberta, miners across Canada's beautiful north. No region has been spared. In the face of uncertainty, Canadians are coming together to stand up for our country and build a stronger, more united Canada. That's why just a few weeks ago, Premier Smith and I were in Saskatoon to sign a historic agreement to unlock free trade between Alberta and Ontario. Over the last few months, Ontario has signed agreements with a total of 6 provinces to support free trade across Canada. We're doing this because we need to unlock the full potential of our economy. We need to tear down the barriers and red tape that have held us back for far, far too long. We need to make Canada more competitive, more resilient, and more self-reliant. We need to build the future for Canada where we can proudly stand tall, strong, united, and independent, so we can stand up to President Trump's tariffs and anything else that comes our way.
I'm going to skip over the rest of what Doug has to say here because I'm tired of it. I am so tired of hearing Doug Ford go on and blame everything on Donald Trump. As I said earlier in this pod, I don't have any time for Donald Trump, especially now. But let's be real here. Can we be real for just a minute? The vast majority of Canadians are not feeling it, haven't felt it. We don't feel like our sovereignty is at threat. I think we all agree that we need to make Canada more self-reliant. That's not an issue. Building pipelines and rail corridors, great job, Premier Ford, great job, Premier Smith. But to continue this, woe is us. Oh, Donald Trump is attacking. Knock it off. Nobody's feeling that way. Maybe some of the low information voters, maybe some of the folks that are senior citizens, maybe they're feeling it, but the vast majority are not. We've got our own problems here in Canada, and that's what we want solved. Unfortunately, it seems like none of the leaders are interested in solving our domestic problems. They're going to blame everything on Donald Trump and keep trying to amp up this emergency. You know, I had a thought yesterday. It's now been confirmed through an access to information request by Blacklock's Report. That is Blacklock's Reporter. That is a news outlet out of Ottawa that does great work and refuses government subsidies. They do not want them because they do not want to be beholden to the government of the day. They don't want to owe them anything. They can offer unbiased coverage that way. And they released a pretty scathing report yesterday that the Privy Council's office was testing out through focus groups the elbows up messaging long before Donald Trump brought up tariffs. In other words, if Canada didn't have drama with the U.S. right now, we would have started the drama. Because elbows up is what the focus groups told the Privy Council's office, who then told the Prime Minister's office, Justin Trudeau at the time, that the key to getting reelected as Liberals, who were deeply unpopular. If you think back to this time last year, the Liberals were done for. And they wanted to know, how can we turn around our electoral fortune? They did a focus group and they figured out that elbows up was going to be the way to get Canadians to rally behind this government, even though it was unpopular. And it worked. Canada voted Liberal. We have a Liberal government now with a Liberal Prime Minister. Did the Ontario Conservatives have access to that research? Because even though Doug Ford never said elbows up, he certainly saw an opportunity, just like the Liberals did, to call an election and to try and get votes based on a fear of Donald Trump. Did someone in the Liberal Party tip off Doug Ford that this was the time and elbows up was the messaging, run purely on an anti-Donald Trump platform, and you're going to win? You don't have to talk about anything domestic. You don't even need to tell the truth. You just need to make people scared enough of Donald Trump that they'll vote for you. Did any of the senior Liberals tip off the Ontario Conservative Party about that? It's no secret that Doug Ford has done a great job at building bridges, and he's got a lot of very high-profile Liberal friends. Just this past weekend, who was he hanging out with? Oh, you can see the photo. Chrystia Freeland, Dominic LeBlanc, Jean Chrétien, former Prime Minister, Tim Houston, Premier of Nova Scotia, and several other prominent Liberals. He was there with them. Olivia Chow was there too, Mayor of Toronto. That's an awfully weird circle for a Conservative to be hanging out in. Not that there's anything wrong with it. I'd like to think that our politicians get along. I would. But you sure as hell would not have seen Pierre Poilievre at that thing. Not a chance. So now that we know that there is a personal relationship between Doug and many high-profile Liberals, did Doug Ford get tipped off? Hey, Doug, if you want to win, now's the time to win. And by the way, once you win and you've got that majority government secured, you are absolutely free to take down Pierre Poilievre and run for the federal Conservative leadership, because it's going to be coming. And sure enough, it is. I mean, they very well orchestrated Pierre Poilievre losing his own seat so that this leadership review would come up. That's the way I see it. It all adds up. If you do the math, all of that makes sense. I just kind of like to know the truth. If it happened, it happened. It doesn't need to be a bad thing. If I was the premier and somebody gave me information about what might work to get me reelected, I'm sure I would listen too. But I'd kind of like to know, were the Liberals trying to get Doug Ford reelected? Were the Liberals trying to get Doug Ford reelected so that Doug Ford could eventually replace Pierre Poilievre? Because I'll tell you one thing, the Liberals do not want to run against Pierre Poilievre. They do not. They wanted him gone, and they are going to keep trying to get him gone. They're dropping all kinds of planted stories in newspapers and with columnists about how unhappy Conservatives are with Pierre Poilievre, how the polling says Pierre Poilievre can't win. I don't buy any of that. Those are planted stories to make people think that there's no support for Pierre Poilievre. I think the support for Pierre is there. I think that Conservatives still like Pierre Poilievre, and I think many who voted Liberal in the last election are probably having a second thought. You know, Anna said it great yesterday. She said, I thought Pierre was just a mini Trump and he was going to sell us out. And, well, now I'm eating my words. Carney is actually the one who is not doing very well at negotiating with the Americans. Let's get to the Q&A here with Premier Smith and Premier Ford.
On the pipelines front, I'm curious what your actual plan is there. There's not necessarily a whole lot of love for oil pipelines necessarily heading east. So what can we expect in terms of concrete, where it might start, where it might go?
Well, first of all, I'd say we have done lots of polling on the attitude towards pipelines. And in every single province, it's a majority, and in some cases well above 70%. And I don't think Ontario is any different. Ontario, I think, knows that with Line 5 right now, it goes through Michigan to feed Sarnia, and that is puts them in a precarious position. The governor of Michigan has been trying to shut that pipeline down for years. And so we have always felt that having a Made in Canada solution with a pipeline option going to not only Ontario and Quebec, it just makes sense from an energy security point of view. And the world changed in November. And I think Canadians understand that we've got to start acting like a country. We've got to start supporting each other. And I think that is the prevailing sentiment in the country. But I'll let Premier Ford speak for his own people.
Well, thank you, Premier Smith. Premier Smith was bang on. We have the governor of Michigan constantly threatening to close down the pipeline. Do you know the disaster that would create in Ontario? It would basically shut down Pearson International Airport, largest airport in the country. Prices would go through the roof. I'm tired of relying on the United States. And let's make no mistake about it. I love the U.S. I love the American people. But there's one person that's causing a problem right now, and that's President Trump. We want to move forward. We want to build the AMCAN fortress. But the days of relying on the United States 100%, they're done. They're gone. We're going to start being reliant and self-reliant on each other. We have the strongest. We're an economic powerhouse in Canada. We're going to continue growing, free trade being one within within all the provinces that will add over $200 billion to our economy, anywhere up to 6% of our GDP. We have to start diversifying our trade right across the world. People would love great Alberta oil, that love products, critical minerals from Ontario. That's what we start doing, and stop being reliant on our neighbors to the south, because there's uncertainty right now and it's hurting our country.
That's a great answer from both premiers. That sounds like leadership to me. I don't hear that coming from Mark Carney, to be honest with you. I really don't. And I want to. I'd love to. Where is the prime minister on this, though? You know, we have serious issues going on here, domestic and foreign. Premier Smith and Premier Ford are spot on there with the exact right messaging. We have to be a real country. We have to be self-reliant. We can't just trust that the Americans have got our back in a lot of cases. What if the Americans decide we've had enough of Line 5 and they decide to shut that pipeline down, which they have a right to do? It goes through Michigan. Then what are we going to do? We need to make ourselves more reliant, and I don't think I'm saying anything controversial here. I think the vast majority agree. Premier Smith cited some polling that they've done. Not surprised to hear it's as much as 70% of people in certain provinces really favor doing some of these projects. Why did we take Premier Smith and Premier Ford off the negotiation team? You know, for a while there, when Justin Trudeau could not even get a phone call with President Trump, it was Doug Ford and Danielle Smith that got stuff done for Canada. They were the ones who had that voice into the American influencers and decision makers. They were the ones who were leading the charge and seemed to be making progress. Well, ever since Carney came in and Smith and Ford are off the case, told to stand down, Mark Carney will handle it, tariffs have gone up. They've gone up. It's craziness to me. I think Doug Ford and Danielle Smith should be leading Canada's negotiation if Mark Carney truly can't get any progress made with the American president. Let's do just a little bit more of this Q&A.
Well, thank you for that, Premier Smith. I've been promoting building pipelines west, east, north, and south. As you just heard Premier Smith say, 2.5 million barrels is our potential. And that's just in Alberta. That's not talking about our great neighbor, Saskatchewan, and up in Newfoundland, Labrador, and a few other places. That's what we need to do. We need to be an economic powerhouse, an energy powerhouse around the world. And we need the $60 billion, as Premier Smith said, to build our infrastructure, healthcare. And rather than just, as you were saying, Premier Smith, rather than just continuously print money, that hasn't worked. We need to unleash the opportunities, no matter if it's the great oil here in Alberta or the critical minerals or the...
Yeah, I mean, I'm hearing nothing but good stuff here. This is the direction we need to go. It seems like Premier Smith and Premier Ford get it. And I'm not sure that Ottawa does. Ottawa's moving at a real slow pace. We've got a government not even sitting right now. Now the PM is on vacation. It just seems like for the emergency that they say we're in, it doesn't seem like anything urgent is happening. But I want to play just one more from this news conference because I thought this was a great one between Ford and Smith. I think that when the premiers of the two biggest provinces in the country get together and start talking about how we can become self-sufficient and we can become an energy superpower, we've all got to listen. And I think that this question and answer sums it all up perfectly. This is going to be about 5 minutes long, maybe a little less. Listen to this.
My name is Jen Hodson from the Western Standard. I'm directing my question at you, Premier Smith, but maybe you both can weigh in. So Prime Minister Mark Carney has said that he's amicable to the one pipeline in BC. So is that enough?
I would say that it depends very much on where you think the world is going. There are a number of forecasting companies that don't do forecasting, they do backcasting, meaning they say, where do we want to be ideologically by 2050 and what would we have to do today to reduce production to get there? I would prefer to deal in the world of reality. And in the world of reality, we have 5 billion people on the planet who want the same standard of living as the industrialized countries. They are going to need energy from all sources to be able to get there. And so if you look at OECD, which does forecasting, they think by 2050 the world is going to need about 120 million barrels a day, up from about 104 today. So if it's a growing market, I think the world would benefit from having more supply from a reliable, friendly, safe neighbor like Canada, especially with the heavy oil product that we provide, because it gives a lot of options in developing asphalt, building materials, lubricants, petrochemicals, and so on. There's a lot of versatility in the product. So we are very much of the view that if we're going to see a growing share, Canada should have a growing share and Alberta should have a growing share. So if we'd had the Energy East, if we'd had Keystone XL, if we had Northern Gateway, we would be producing 2.5 million barrels a day, more than we are today. That would have been generating somewhere in the order of, $60 billion a year in revenue for the country. And that would have, and as again, 40% of that revenue going to various governments. That would go a long way towards allowing us the dollars that we need to meet our NATO international target for spending, or any of the social programs that we keep that we value. And I think that this is maybe the new understanding that we need to have. If you want to provide the supports for your people, you have to generate the revenue so that you have the money there. The model we've been using for the last 10 years has been borrow, 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 print money, and see inflation. It doesn't work. How about we try a different approach? Let's make sure that every single part of our economy is ticking on all cylinders. Let's make sure that all of our wealth creators and job creators have the ability to do that. And then governments can talk about what their priorities are for the revenue that gets generated as a result. That's the world I think we're moving to. So I'm of the view that there's probably room for more than one pipeline, probably several.
Wow. Can she just speak of the Prime Minister now? Can we just all agree, like even if we do an internet poll or something, she's the new Prime Minister? That's somebody who gets it. We can't keep printing money because we know what happens when we print money. We went through 10 years of Justin Trudeau, and now we're staring at 4 years with Mark Carney, who wants to do the exact same thing, print money. What Danielle Smith is suggesting is, why don't we make more money? Why don't we actually use what we have and make money? $60 billion a year. $60 billion a year. That's how much we're losing by not already having these things in place. And that goes right back to Justin Trudeau. Prime Minister Carney has a chance to right that wrong. He could put us on the right track, but will he do it? It remains to be seen. I will catch you back here tomorrow with another episode of Scott Fox After 9. Tomorrow, silent date guy in Las Vegas. Can't wait to tell you the story. Until then, have a great one. If you don't mind, tell a friend about this podcast. Somebody who might like it. A reasonable, common sense, down the middle approach to today's news headlines every single day. See you tomorrow. Oh, yeah.